daughter Bethany has 2 children. Her first child, the pregnancy went perfect, but the labor and delivery was very difficult.
She went through so many stages so slowly.
Yeah, my first daughter, Lily, was born 15 and a half hours of labor.
I did a lot of work as far as pushing on her back because she had back labor.
Most of which was accompanied by back labor, which from my experience was constant horrific back pain with contractions in between that made the back pain worse.
Watching your wife go from giving up to giving up again to giving up again to hitting her limit, it felt like 10 times, to where it just seemed like impossible to watch her bear anything more.
I was witness to that. She had me in the room. I was watching the birth, praying through it, and the pain was more than average, I think.
And where I was constantly going and getting her, heating up some rice inside of a cloth and putting it around her back and all the things that she needed. I was constantly getting her ice, and it was 15 hours of a lot of work for mostly her, but it was a lot of work for me as well, kind of trying to like watch my wife go through something that was just so awful. It was such a horrible thing. I really couldn't imagine going through that twice.
I was throwing up, I was miserable, I couldn't walk, I was, crying. I didn't get an epidural because I thought, no, I'm going to do this natural, and, and I wanted to be tough and strong, and
it was like watching her get beat up over and over and over again.
It was definitely a curse. It wasn't.
It's wrong.
It didn't feel like a blessing. No, it was wrong. It wasn't the way it should be.
I don't think I'm going to be able to do that again if I have to do this without an epidural. So it was just a terrifying thought, dreading the end of my pregnancy, realizing what I had to do again, and I did not want to go through that.
I told Bethany about this book by Jackie Mize after watching her go through all that pain. And we believe in healing, and we believe we're redeemed from the curse. I said, you don't have to have that pain. Let's watch this next delivery be different. Let's believe that you're not going to be in pain this time.
Well, one day I was at my mom's house and we were talking, and she mentioned that she had heard this book. It's called Supernatural Childbirth. And I asked her what it was about, and she talked about how this woman discovered that she could have childbirth without pain. And given my first experience with my daughter Lily, I was all for that.
She kind of came home and told me that she had learned some things about supernatural healing in childbirth.
Oh, you can have childbirth without pain, and I didn't know how to believe that, but for me, hearing that somebody had done it was really important to me. I should have been able to believe based off understanding that we're not under the curse of the law and all that, but I just couldn't. I could not fathom it. It did not make any sense to me, but once you told me somebody had already done it, I was like, oh, well, I need to read that.
I was worried about, she's a nurse, so I was really worried that that would get in the way or interfere with her not having pain during her childbirth.
So we ordered the book off of eBay, and then it turns out there's a book, and there's a scriptures confession book, and then there's also an audio, so I got all of them.
It was hard. At first, it was just kind of like, wow, that's a lot to do. We're going to have to go through some scriptures, we're going to have to go do some certain things, we're going to have to study up on this, we're going to have to do a bunch of stuff.
In the middle of reading, I'm like, I could do this, I could so do this. This is not impossible, this is something that needs to happen, and I'm not doing it the other way again.
She'd kind of done a lot of the stuff on her own and kind of laid it out for me, like, here, listen to the CD and listen to this and do this, and I was like, okay.
The one book that I really focused on was a confessions book, and it had what you should confess for, getting pregnant, what you should confess during your pregnancy, what you should confess. It focused a lot on fear, and I didn't think I was afraid because I've already done it, but the more I got closer to it, I realized I was terrified.
So she learned how to speak to her body, how that we have authority over our body, and it's very similar to believing in healing, and I believe in all that, so it's a new angle on being redeemed from the curse.
She just was going through the Bible and filling out and highlighting scriptures and putting things down. She had a book ready to go.
Just reading the book, you could feel like the power coming out of what she was saying.
We were pretty heavily into speaking to the body and commanding this to go quick, smooth, easy, and their body to work exactly the way it's supposed to work.
Uterus, you're going to contract and be forceful enough, and you're going to get the baby out without complications. Baby, you will be in right proper position for birth, cord not wrapped around the neck. Speak to all the areas that need to stretch and open, and your cervix will open, and you will dilate quickly, and you will not be in labor for hours and hours on end. We will not have back pain, things like that. It was just very, no, this has to be how it has to go. So it was nice.
She embraced it, and we were far blessed because of it.
That morning, I was thinking about her, and I said out loud, "Today's the day, Bethany. Bethany's going to have that baby today." Just decided to start speaking that.
I had gone to the doctor that morning, and for the last 3 appointments I had been 1 centimeter dilated. The baby was still up high. Nothing was changing.
And when she came in, I was hoping to see, to hear that things were moving along. She was feeling defeated. We had seen her pregnant long enough, and we knew we could speak to her body and command it to go into labor. We talked about what a good day it would be for her to go into labor, all the reasons why this would be a good day.
And she started praying for me that I would go into labor and that everything would start moving, and so I ended up staying there the whole day.
Yeah, you're 2 days late. You're going to have this baby today. We both laid hands on her and we prayed, baby, you want to come out today. Today's your birthday. You're going to come out today.
So I said, we're going to start speaking to this baby to come out. Bodies start contracting. It's time for the baby to be born.
I went for walks with my sisters, and I could feel contractions were coming, but nothing was really consistent, and it was kind of like hard to tell what it actually was.
By 3 o'clock, she said, "I think I'm having contractions, but I'm not sure. I think it could be the baby moving, stretching." I said, "Well, I'm familiar with how they feel with my hand, so mind if I try?" And I felt her stomach hard as a rock at a certain place, and I said, that's a contraction. Let's see how long they're lasting and start timing them.
That was actually very interesting, because she was like, she had her hands on her stomach and she was like, "I think I'm having a contraction." And so you would start timing it, and she'd be like, "Okay, I think it's done."
Because this was not painful, and I was having a hard time actually realizing if I was having a contraction.
She was having contractions. She says, "But they're irregular." And I said, "You're 2 days late. It's time to have the baby. You're having labor. This is the beginning. They start irregular."
"I don't know, Mom. I don't maybe not today. We're like, hello."
Finally, around 6:30 at night, I started to notice things were becoming more consistent. I was having contractions, not painful. So again, that was the other part. It was, with Lily, I had a lot of back pain, and that's how I knew these were real contractions as opposed to Braxton Hicks or something different.
I've seen women in labor before, and it's like, really, really taking all their concentration. And she seemed to be like, "Okay, I think I'm starting another one."
And then once I started realizing that's what it was, and then they were every 3 minutes, and then I still was just nervous that I was going to get there, and they were going to tell me it was false labor.
Yeah, she was standing in the middle of our kitchen, essentially, going, "Okay, it's starting again." It was really very cool.
And she called me up and said that she's feeling contractions and they're 3 minutes apart.
It wasn't a big panic. It wasn't an urgent thing. She went around and picked up all of Lily's little toys and said, "Well, let me clean up." And
I go pick her up from her mom's house, and she seems like she seems okay. She doesn't seem like anything. She doesn't seem like she's in pain or anything. It's totally different than the other time.
it was like, "Okay, well, so you're going to the hospital, right?" Yeah, we're going to go to the hospital. And I think I'm having another contraction.
Like before we go to the hospital, she hands a CD and puts it into the radio, and it's all about the pain-free childbirth, and it's all about a testimony of someone who went through it, and just reads off Bible scriptures and things that I know are true, and it strengthened me and encouraged me. So, and I know it encouraged her. So going into the hospital and the atmosphere in there, they all seemed kind of to watch her demeanor, or to say like, she's okay, she might not even stay.
I got there and the staff was all kind of hilarious. They just didn't believe, they like didn't believe me, because they're like, oh, you're having contractions? Oh, did your water, like they wanted some reason why I was there, since I didn't look uncomfortable. I checked in and I got there, and the nurse kept making comments, well, if we keep you, well, if you need to stay. And in my mind, I'm thinking, I am having contractions 3 minutes apart. I don't care what I look like, you're not sending me anywhere.
They're responding based on your pain level, and then she's not really having any pain. So they're like, well, it might be a few hours, or maybe it'll be tomorrow. And Bethany's like, I don't think so. I think it's coming soon.
So they put her in the room. The doctor was coming out of a C-section. So they said the doctor will be here in 45 minutes. Bethany wasn't liking that, because she kept saying, I don't know about that. I'm feeling like I'm pretty far along. And she kept saying that to me, and the nurse kept coming in and out.
And I was getting a little frustrated at that point, because I could tell that things were changing and things were getting different, even though it wasn't more painful. And it made me nervous that they were not going to take me seriously. But I remember Jackie saying that. I remember her explaining that they didn't believe her, and she got there and 10 minutes later had a baby, and everything worked out, and I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to panic. So we were sitting there, and as I was sitting on the table, the triage table, sitting there, they hook you up to the monitor, and I could tell the contractions were still happening, but that's when it started to get into the hard labor, where you could actually see my belly change. And
we were rebuking the pain, we were rebuking everything. She felt her back labor coming back on, like the first pregnancy. She rebuked that away, and she did it with authority, and it left. And
I was getting more back pain. It was tightening, only during the contractions, but every time the contraction would come, that would happen. And I started to get very anxious. I'm like, no, and I was trying not to be afraid.
She would play some music, pull out her book, and she would start going through some scriptures about fear and pain and everything.
I'm sitting there with the book, and it's just me, Dan, sitting in the room. So eventually I'm still sitting there. It's been about half an hour. Nobody's still come to check on me. They're still leaving me in this, even though I'm having these contractions, they don't believe me.
I was prompted in the spirit. I spoke out loud, water, you break right now in the name of Jesus.
And her water broke right there. And then they seemed to get a little bit more serious.
A few minutes later, I got a text. My water broke. I said, praise God. She's not going home.
The doctor finally comes in. It's been almost an hour at this point. And he's talking to me, and I'm having contractions, and he's still talking to me, and I'm talking to him during the contraction.
And the doctor was like, you're talking to me the whole time through all your contractions, and you're a 6?
And all the staff was like, what? I could hear them all. There's 4 people in there, and they're all talking to each other, and he's like, she's still talking to me during her contractions. And the other nurse says, I know, she doesn't look 6 or 7. And I'm just, sitting there like kind of laughing at myself, trying to also stay calm and relax. And I can see Dan over there laughing.
The doctor was so just blown away. I don't know if it was an intern or what, but he was blown away that she was even able to talk to her while she was going through what she was going through.
And at this point, I can tell that she's moving down. I'm feeling different. I can tell that this is getting harder. It was getting more painful, but again, it would get worse, and then I would pray, and they would get better. And I was feeling all kinds of emotions, and I didn't know what to do with them. Dan's like, do you want to take a shower? Because that's what we did when we had Lily. And I remember being in the shower and made everything go kind of fast. And I just remember him saying that to me, and me sitting in the bed thinking, this is not going to be that much longer. I really don't want to get up, but I don't want to sit here either, because nobody's doing anything. We're all just sitting here, and I was frustrated. But I had remembered telling Dan, I'm like, once we get there, this is not going to take that long. And he's like, oh, okay. And because I was praying, and that was the other thing. I was like, well, I'm uncomfortable, but this is going to, cervix, you dilate. baby, you move down, and I was just that was what I kept telling myself too. So finally they get me up to get me in the shower, and immediately I was like, no, something feels different. So right as I stood up, they set me back down, they checked me, no, you're still 7.
7, 6 or 7, no progress.
Okay, so they get me all the way to the shower. I didn't even get in the shower, and I'm pushing, standing up, because you just can't stop it at that point. And so finally they get me all the way back to the bed, and I'm still having every other contraction. I'm pushing, they can't lay me down because I can't move. So everybody's kind of freaking out at this point. They check me, I'm complete. I went from 7 to 10 in less than 5 minutes. And so I was like, oh, okay, this is, and at this point, that also started to be uncomfortable, and I was like, okay, well, we have to pray for that now. So I'm telling Dan, I'm like, Dan, pray, everything's stretching, I'm laying there, I'm praying in tongues, I'm trying not to panic, but I can also hear all the staff around me constantly commenting, oh my God, she's done? Wow, you have such great control, blah, 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 and they're just going on and on and on about how great I look, and, and I'm thinking, okay, well, thank you, that's good, let's get this over with, people. And I remember, as I'm praying in tongues, and I'm praying over and over in my head. Again, I'm not telling the staff anything I'm doing, because I just didn't need anybody else's comments. But as I'm praying about what everything needs to stretch, and it's not going to be, that bad. And again, that would even get better too. It would start to get painful, and then that would get better.
So the doctor seemed kind of shocked and in awe that her body was just cooperating with her in every way.
And the doctor's telling me, oh, you're stretching beautifully. Everything's stretching. And I was just like, yes, reassurance. So that was really comforting and nice. And yeah, 5 or 6 pushes, and I was done.
The pushing was incredible. I think 6 pushes. I don't even know if it was that. It was so quick.
And I remember thinking, as I was pushing, well, Jackie had a baby in 1 push. I wonder what that would be like.
It was just incredible. It was 6 pushes, and she had the baby out. And she pulled the baby out herself.
As she's coming out, she's like, reach down and grab your baby. And I reached down, and I pulled her up and put her on my chest. And I just looked over at him. I was like, I did it. We're done. And he's laughing at me, and I'm laughing. And it was very, very different.
It was about 10 after 12 by the time I got one more text. Expecting, now she's at 10, now she's at whatever. Baby born, 11:57. The baby's born already. We didn't know from 11:20 till 10 after 12 what had happened. We were rejoicing. It was definitely miraculous, supernatural childbirth.
It was such a different experience. It was exactly how childbirth should be.